All right, today's episode of the Five Reasons Podcast. I'm here with my cousin Eagle. We're down at Elam in Clear Lake, California, Clear Oaks, California. And, you know, me and Eagle grew up together, dancing together. And we've been talking about Pomo culture and protocols and what it means to carry on the dances when we were raised in. And, you know, the changing and staying strong in today's ceremonies, from shakehead, you know, to our ceremony in the roundhouse, and the responsibilities and the beauty and the spiritual importance of keeping it all going. So I welcome my cousin Eagle, and we've been dancing together since we were kids. And so Eagle, I just want to welcome you today and just see how you were doing today before we get started.
Yeah, thank you. I'm doing great. Just want to say real quickly, Hekate Ma weekend, Batsulwin Brown, and just saying that we're from this land here, and I'm doing good. Have beautiful children, beautiful partner, and life is really good. Life is good.
And before we get started too, you've been doing a lot of things here, and a lot of singing and dancing, and a lot of speeches. So you've been really busy, as of lately, with your all the things that you've been. What was the last thing you've been doing recently?
Most recent, just having a lot of conversation around culture, and a lot of people who are, re-indigenizing and looking to learn their culture have been, reaching out, and I've been talking to different people about what that looks like, and just trying to help people where I can understand the depth of our culture, and how it's not something that happens quickly. It's got a long history and old traditions, and it's important to understand that that there's this history that needs to be understood, but trying to do that in a good way where people don't get offended or feel like they can't be a part of this. And so it's definitely some interesting conversations, but I've really had some good travels in the last month, going out to Oak Flat, and then being in the lands of my my partner's family out in South Dakota, getting a chance to really be a part of a lot of good places and circles, and learning a lot about teachings and protocols, and even helping me understand, some of the things in our community that are of importance and need to be taught and shared. Okay.
And that's really important, because like I wanted to mention before, when we always talk about, our dancing, and like what is your early memories of dancing and your family influence?
Yeah, I think the earliest dance I can recall is actually on Rattlesnake Island, and had to be probably about 6 or 7 maybe. And I just remember it was away from the community, so there was no houses out there, no just limited electricity. And I remember the land and it being kind of out in the wilderness, and it was different. It was a little scary as a kid, because it wasn't in the community where the roads are at and houses and electricity. And so I remember it being kind of scared, but knowing that this was how it was supposed to be, in this place on the land, and where there was limited accommodations. And so I think the dance, I remember we danced Shake It over there, and they even had the big head ceremony going on. Yeah. And so just remember bits and pieces of that. Remember our grandfather, our grandmother, and it being a good time. And I don't have a lot of other specific memories, but I do remember, the dance, and I do remember the big head ceremony. And so it was real special. And I think for being some of my earliest memories, they're good ones, and to know that there was something going on that I didn't understand at the time, and that I understand today, was the continuing, of the ceremonies and what we're talking about, how to continue it, and why, our grandfather and the elders of the time spent so much time sharing and passing down knowledge, because they wanted this to continue. And little did I know it was at a place where it was almost coming to an end if they didn't make the choice to carry it on and share. So a real pivotal point in time, and I think it's definitely something that I think about a lot, and kind of measure up, am I doing some of those same things to continue this, so I think about that.
When you talk about, because we all have our own style of dancing, who do you think, like what what person or what dancer shaped you as a dancer growing up?
Yeah, I think there's a couple, and some I didn't see personally. I always hear of, our Uncle Mark's and how he danced. Never got to see that myself. Know some of our older cousins did, and then even hearing about Uncle Calvin, how he danced, and so I would try to picture this in my head and think about how they moved, and then when I talked to some of the older dancers, our father's cousins and first cousins, and some of the dances I remember, like Gus and Cal, and the ones I remember that they had a bit of that, of what they seen from the ones that are older than them. So I really try to imagine that, but I think for myself it was, my dad also, and Cal and Uncle Gus, and those that I saw that really stood out to me, when it came to being lead dancers in the ceremony. And then there was other dancers who danced the big head that I really admired too, and I think Uncle Ray was one of those that I got to see. And then other people from other communities too that I remember seeing and thinking I want to be able to do that, but then also I guess realizing as you get older it's not so much the physical movements, but just letting the spirit help guide you, and it'll come out the way it's supposed to, So I think about that too, and all of those dancers that I got to see and really appreciate and hold those memories dear, because it was a part of, again, shaping what I wanted to become too.
Do you remember even like old singers? Can you name like some singers? I know who you're probably going to name because we danced together, but any old singers that you remember dancing for?
Not
like our grandfather was one of them.
Yeah, not really dancing. I do remember hearing like Angelo Knight sing from Hopland. I remember seeing that Jess Frank, heard him sing. But then of course here, like you said, Grandpa and Uncle Marksy, Uncle Nelson's, the ones that we grew up dancing with. But then some of the other singers I admired that I didn't really know, just knew they were from another place. And so there was a few singers like Jess Frank that I really admired because he had a deep voice, and his voice carried. And then everybody had kind of their own sound, it seemed like, but it was unique in itself. And so I think those are the ones I think of outside of our community here that we grew up around. But not anybody else. I've heard of, some of the singers from the Valley, Oscar McDaniel and the Burroughses, but I didn't get to hear them sing, so heard the stories.
I think I could tell there's a little bit difference of, our roundhouse ceremonies, like our big head ceremonies, and then you have the shake head ceremonies. Is there, you think there's like there's some really good singers in the roundhouse, but then there's some really, really good singers that do shake head, but don't, you know what I mean? Like there's some that are good at shake head, and they're okay in the roundhouse, but the ones in the roundhouse are really good in the roundhouse, but not really good at shake it. Yeah. And there's a difference in between the two, like of singing those songs, shake it songs.
Yeah, there really is.
Songs.
There really is, and I think it's a really, it's a teaching, and it's a skill that's, and I don't know if I don't call it a skill, but it's something that's very unique. When you can transition between both, and then also. Because it seems like a lot of times in the roundhouse, the big head ceremony, the songs are a lot faster sometimes, and then there's some slower songs, and then but you have a partner, you
get a break.
So but when you're singing shakehead songs, it's straight. If you got one or two singers, it helps out, but if it's something you're doing and singing by yourself, it is pretty tough, to carry the songs, and I know Grandpa did that. Growing up and made it look easy, your dad made it look easy, and Uncle Ray made it look pretty easy at times, and so I think about how you had to train yourself to be able to sing like that. You couldn't just get out there and do it. You had to train yourself, and so I really think about how that happens and how the people that can do that are really, and I don't want to say talented, but it's almost like you have to have a uniqueness and something special within you to do that, and so but there's not very many, like you said, there's either good in one or the other, but to do them both really good is something unique.
And I, like we were talking about before and a while back, it's like even with Shakehead, like it's not like bird singing.
Mhm.
It's like, if I'm singing with you, and we talked about this before, if I sing with you and you're the singer, I would have to just stay at your level or harmonize at your level. If I were to go at like I'm gonna sing my own sing loud too, then it's not gonna sound that good. It's gonna be off. And that's something that today I think they get so many singers out there, but you all gotta remember who's the lead singer. Who's the one that's actually running the songs. And so I think that's something that's very important today that gets overlooked.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And because like you said, you'll hear when there's two singers and you don't know who the lead singer is, because it is kind of like not a battle, but they're kind of trying to out-sing each other a little bit sometimes, and it doesn't have that harmony and it doesn't flow good. And I think it's important that people know that there are lead singers, and it's okay to be the second singer or the backup singer, whatever you want to call it. It's okay to do that because it's important, and I know we were just sharing at the Roundhouse recently that in the Roundhouse, when you're the lead singer, you stand on the right side, and if you're the second singer, you're on the left side. And a lot of times people, even today, didn't even realize that, but it's something we heard growing up. But then if you don't talk about it, people don't really understand that's what's going on. Because
that's mostly done in a Roundhouse. So like, you go out, we still keep it that way. The right side is the lead, stuff like that. But I get where you're coming from on that, because it also goes through with like, the importance. I know a lot of people don't like the word, like the protocol, but there's the importance of ceremonial protocols, and like today, what do you think gets overlooked today on the protocols?
Wow, I think a lot gets overlooked, and I think a lot of it has to do with in different communities and families, people not passing teachings down. And I know from here, and I was sharing this and saying this at Oak Flat, that our family here, we're unique because not only did our grandfather sing, but his father before him and his grandpa, and so it came down to us, through our family. And a lot of places it's not like that, but it's important to know, that there is a process of how you become a singer and what to do that. And so I think it's important when we're talking about protocols that people, when they want to learn something, think about that first. And a lot of times I ask people, if they're wanting to do something, well, what's making you want to do that? Is it something you want, or is it something you need in your life? And a lot of times the answers are varying, of why people are coming for teachings or they want to learn this. And the first thing I'll usually tell them, like pray about it. Don't jump right into it too soon. Pray about it and get guidance if you can. But I think there's a lot of areas, even with the dancing, how to become a dancer, how to become a singer, how to become a regalia maker, how to become a bead maker. There's all these different trades that our people had, and not one person specialized in everything. There was these people who specialized in a certain thing, and whether it was bead making or regalia making, and some could do it, some could do multiple. But I feel like today people want to do everything, and sometimes that's not needed. Just learn one thing and be good at that, and then you'll have that ability to teach people. But if you're doing too much, I think you kind of get caught up in trying to be like recognized like from the outside community as important importance, because all these things, and so you might overlook various teachings, and so it's really important to think about protocol versus people saying, oh, you're gatekeeping. Like protocol is important, and there's lessons in the teachings and why you do this, why you don't do that. And even, there's the singing. There's a young man who wants to learn how to sing, and he's a part of the dance, but his roots aren't here, and so it's like, it's at the same time you want to share because he's asking, and then also at the same time talking about the respect part of these songs, and this is where they come from. And if you become a singer, that doesn't mean you can take those songs and sing them wherever you want to. You're going to be a singer here, and so there's a lot of different things I think we miss when it comes to the values of why. Like this is the value and this is why. And so it's easy nowadays to get a recording and find recordings in archives and just sing whatever, but then you really don't get the lesson of where you sing this, what time you sing this, what dance is this for, what is the song singing about, and so I think a lot gets left out when you don't take the time, and it's not saying people need to earn it, but there has to be a spiritual vow or a commitment to want to learn it, and then do it the best way you can. And I think a lot of times people overlook that because they want to get out there and they want to do it because it feels good. They see it feels good, and I think they want to feel that experience of that connection. And sometimes it's like missed a little bit with kind of jumping out in front and not doing some of those teachings and the protocols that will help you have a better and deeper knowledge.
I think the way, and I think it goes for you and people in our family, but I know I started singing because I don't want to say I was forced, but it's because my dad is not here. And you started singing because a singer didn't show up. Our cousin, Clifford Moore, he started singing because a singer didn't show up. So we've all started singing, not to say, well, I want to be a singer. We all started singing because we had to sing that day, and so we just kind of kept, that's how for me, that's how I started. Yeah. And as you know, when we went to Oak Flat, if I get a chance to dance, I'm going to dance. I don't care, how, if you showed up, okay, I'm dancing because, again, I'd rather dance than sing. But, a lot of people need to understand that, how it goes for us is if we're singing today because there's the singers are not here. Yeah. And it's not because, but there are some that are just straight singers, and so, but when we go back to you were just talking about the respect. So what do you think about the respect for regalia? Do you think people regalia, the respect for regalia, roles, and song ownership? You think that's something that's important for us to understand and keep?
Yeah, I definitely think it is, and because I think what happens is there was so much in our culture that some of us have been made to believe because we've only seen a little part of it, that's it, that's everything, and I think it's important for anybody who wants to get involved culturally and ceremonially to in a sense become a student and learn about all you can about the history. And if you can't get it orally from word of mouth from family members, then it's okay to do some research and to learn about what our people were doing. And I always tell people it's like the shakehead dance or the feather dance, whatever people want to call it, is just one small part of all of these dances we had. And so it's important to understand the regalia and how a dancer and how an outfit is dressed up, and it'll tell you what dance they're going to do. And so a lot of times people, because it's all been mashed together, people think they can dress any way and just come out there and not know that they might be dressing for something else, and that's not what they're doing. And so I think it's important when, even like you say, when it comes to regalia, to know that there's certain makers and they're making regalia for some of these different outfits and these different dances, and that not all regalia goes for everything. And so I think sometimes we get caught up in thinking that this is just it, but there's so much more that goes into it, and that's why I encourage people to learn as much as you can so you know the different parts, because there's dances we have where you have just the two horns, the two feather horns and the three feather horns, and people, I've seen people do that, and I ask them, why are you wearing that like that? And because it looks good, and there's nothing behind it culturally or a teaching. They just seen something and it looked good to them. And so I think it's important when it comes to the regalia making, the dances, it's important to know the origins as best as you can, and why these dances were done, whether it's the certain time of year or the season, why they were done at that time. And so there's an opportunity, I think, more than ever to learn, but it's just sometimes I feel like people they just want to be a part of something. And I don't say nothing to discourage anybody, because I'd rather people, especially young people, get involved with dancing than go and be in a gang, and so, but at some point, I think we all have to get together and talk about how are we going to teach, because we're all intertwined now. There's not anybody just from one village anymore. we've got relatives everywhere. So at some point we have to say, how are we going to pass this down? So the protocol, the regalia makers, and because you can spot it, like even with Uncle Nelson's flickers, you knew it when you seen it. It was one of his. And same thing with him, and then even your flickers. Like I recognize him now when I see him, and so those are the things I think that are important. And then also how to go about, attaining those. Not just thinking, I always hear people say, oh well, like it should be for free, but then you don't realize how much time and we've said this before, you've given your life to learn this, and then somebody just wants it right away, and so there's always that, and trying to talk about the balance of having that. And so I think those are things that are important to talk about, because again, like if we think about all of the time it takes, it is a lifetime of learning and doing it, and being a part of it, versus just, hey, I just want to learn this right now, and I don't want to know nothing else. I just want to know how to do this.
Do you think there need to be more respect for like where songs come from? Because I know a lot of times when we go out, we hear people sing songs that are not from that tribe, but because it sounds good, they'll sing it. So do you think there should be more respect of where the song comes from?
Yeah, definitely. And I think those are things that happen, and I understand too, there was times when we shared songs, and so if a song was something that made you feel good or it helped you, there was even times where you asked to go and sing it, and you offered something, whether it was beads or feathers, or like today, some money or whatever it is. You offered it because it made you feel a certain way, it made you feel good, and you asked permission out of respect. You just didn't go and, hey, I heard it, I can sing it, I'm gonna do it. You went and did that, and I think a lot of times people don't realize the songs that we're singing. There's the descendants of those people who those songs came from, and I think it's important always to acknowledge the family, even if it's not the dreamer, you acknowledge the family, and do that in a respectful way, because I really feel like, nothing we did was to hoard it. It was to be shared, but in a good way, not to just share it because you want to, be the one giving it to other people, but to share it and understand why. Why did we share this song? Why did this song come over here? How did we start singing this song? And there's origins behind it. There's stories behind it. And so it's good to, know that the maker of the songs or who dreamt the songs, and to acknowledge them, because they might have had to pay for something. They might have had to offer something for that, and even just sharing, my son's song, that this came to him, and not that it belongs to him, but it's coming to him for the people.
You tell them where it's coming from.
Yeah. And so there's all of that has its value and has its place. And I think when you start to do that, it creates openness to where people are more willing to say, oh yeah, I'll share that with you, and I'll teach you that song if you like it, and because I've had people say that too, like, hey, can I sing that song? And like, well, let's sit down and sing first. Let's sing together first. So you sing it, the best way you can, and don't just sing it when none of us are around. And that's happened too, where I've heard some of Grandpa's songs, that people told me, oh, so-and-so sang that song, and it didn't sound like how you guys sing it, and then I don't get mad at the person who sang it. I just feel bad that the song didn't sound the way it was supposed to, and so those types of things happen where it's just like, all right, next time I see this person, I'm gonna have a conversation and say, if you want to sing that, I can help you sing the song, so you sing it the way it's supposed to, or the way we learned it, and so it becomes a positive thing rather than it being, oh, you're wrong, you did that wrong, and you shouldn't be doing that. Just try to approach it in a little different way to share and teach some of the knowledge.
That people get the confusion of, like, if they sing, let's say my dad sings a song with them, and then later on they'll say, hey, your dad passed this song down to me. It's like, no, he actually just kind of sang it with you. He never did say, okay, I'm passing this song down to you. It's just like, I think a lot of singers have said that before, like, oh, Eagle's passed the song to me. No, Eagle, you sang it with Eagle, but I don't know. So things like that too is where we get mixed up on. And so that's where they have to learn. But when we go back to, like, regalia, as we were talking about, and we talk about classes, so like, like for me and you, we learned, like I learned Regalia from my uncle, Uncle Nelson. I learned from Emick, and I actually learned from all you guys. Like as Regalia makers, we can talk amongst each other and say, oh, try this knot, try that knot. And then like we kind of like figure it out, and how things are made. So like when classes, one of the things is, are classes helpful today, or you think they shift the way of teaching, the way they're passed on? And again, one more thing: do you think it's right or wrong for us? You think we have the right to say what's right and what's wrong with classes? What do you think?
I think anybody who's knowledgeable, anybody wanting to get in the place of wanting to help spread teachings should talk to knowledgeable people, and not just go, hey, I'm going to do this, and I think also being a resource, and saying, hey, I'm going to tell you this is the perspective I was taught in, and you might not follow that all the way, but at least here you've heard this, but I think it's important when people are in a position to say, hey, I don't think that's okay, that has to be done too, and not to say we're the authority, but like we need to be careful in this instance right here. And so I think it's important that the people that do know, if there ever comes a time where they have to say something, that they do it in a good way too, because I understand a lot of people don't have access. They don't have a place to go and pray. They don't have a roundhouse. They don't have a ceremonial place. And so they have to use whatever spaces they have. And so, but I think at the same time, with that being said, there's only so much you can teach in a classroom. You can't teach all of the teachings because you're not in the right space to do that. And I think a lot of times we think because, we went to a class that we know it now, but it's really like you're just at the tip of the iceberg, and so I think to tell people that it's good you got someplace to start, but if you want to get deeper in the knowledge, you have to start going to those places that have carried on ceremonies where all of those elders were at teaching and showing, like you said, that sitting around and talking about, this is how I do this, or this is the knot I use, and this is how I bend the feathers, and this is how I gather things, and so I think it's really important because you usually at a class you got one person who learned from somebody, but when you have access and the resource to, hey, there's 7 other people I can talk to about how to do this, I think it helps with all of the teaching, and it gets deeper in the knowledge. And so I think it's important that anytime people are considering doing classes, that's a place for a limited amount of things that can happen, and it's not to degrade anybody that has to go to classes, but again, take it a step further, and go to the roundhouse and go ask other people that because you really can only get one person's perspective, or even as 2 teachers. You only can get their 2 perspectives. And then how much one-on-one time do they have you to pass down the stories, and I think that's what's important is when you learn, you get all the stories too. This is who taught me, and this is how I learned this, and this is how I do this part because so-and-so showed me this, and I think it's important for anybody who wants to learn to think about all of those things, so it's not something that when you get out there, it might look okay, but it might not feel the way it's supposed to feel, and so I don't know, like I say, I always see, like even on flyers, whether it's dressmaking or feather coat making, that's only one part of the outfit, so if you're only teaching one part of the outfit, then it tells me that there's only so much you can do, but when I see people who I know from the roundhouse teaching, it's almost like they probably can do all of it, but we don't have the money or the funding to do all that right now. So we're just going to do one piece at a time, but then you still are just at one place. You don't get the whole teaching. It's just that one thing you're working on, and the teachings around that, so yeah, I think it's, like I say, it's always important to make sure you're talking to your resources, the people who are out there, and getting perspective and understanding before you just do it, because then, it even becomes like how do you become a dancer? Yeah. Oh, well, I went to a class and I became a dancer, and it's like, oh, well, it was done differently. But then it's kind of like at the same time when I think about that too. Then it makes me feel a little bit sad for those people that they don't have a place to come and be a dancer at. They have to do it in a class or and whatever methods they have. And so I think it's important to even open up and share, but then again ask, like, where are you a dancer? How did you become a dancer? Because there's teachings around all of that.
So you think it's about the method or the intention behind it in classes?
I think it's both. The method is important too, of how it's getting done and teachings, but also the intention always, I feel like, has to be with the right intention, and not just saying, oh, we're here in a good way, but what does that mean away from this class? Are you a good person in your life? Are you doing good things for your family? Are you doing good things for your community? Or are you just doing good right now because you want to do this class? You want to make something right now. And so it's always like, stop having like a small view or a narrow view, but think big picture. If I'm going to do this, then I need to live my life a certain way. I need to be the best person I can. And we're all human. We make mistakes, but at the same time, to know when you make a mistake, learn from it. Don't keep making it. And I think those are things that are important to have the balance in all of it. And so there's definitely need for both of those areas.
When we talk about like the dancing, and we talk about most of this dancing, we're talking about a shakehead, because we have our roundhouse ceremonies. But what do you think today? Like, what do you think is changing today in our dancing, and what do you think is still intact though with dancing? Yeah,
well, I could really only speak to, I think, what's intact here, and I feel like when I see other dance groups, say if they're from the coast but they're not the roundhouse people, or they're from another area but they're not involved in ceremonies, it does look different, and a good example is like there's the group at Pascana that just started dancing again for the first time in 70 years, maybe longer than that. And so when they come out, it feels good that they come out, but then it's like, well, I don't see none of these people come to ceremony, and so when they start dancing, you could tell they're not all in the right place because it sounds a little off.
They're not in sync.
Yeah, the dance is a little off, and so they're working it out, but that's all going to come with time again. Dancing and singing together, and I think those are things that I notice right away, and it doesn't make me judge them. It just knows that they need to do some more. They need to get together more, and so if it's only like something they're doing in public or at big times, then they're not going to have all the time, like in ceremony, to dance and get those tunes and melodies and rhythm down, and that togetherness, and so I feel like that with other dancers around here too, where you see them dancing and they're all dancing different steps and almost like it's they're all in the same group, but they're all doing their own individual dance, and so I think those are things that are happening because nobody's teaching the steps, like how Uncle Nelson would say, oh, this is how you do this step for this song, and so there's not anybody doing that, or maybe nobody's asking, like, how do we dance to this song? Is it straight? Is it two-step? Is it triple step? Are we skipping, or are we doing a slow waltz? What are we doing, and so sometimes you see that, and then you kind of know, like, hey, these guys are just learning, and so I think definitely, those are all things that are important to, share about, but a lot of times it's hard because people get offended right away, even when you're trying to share in a good way. And I think those are things, again, you have to really do it in a way, because sometimes people are really touchy, and don't want to take any insight, or, right away it's, oh, you're criticizing us. And it's like, no, it's just, like, these are things that are important to learn,
So you think, when we talk about the ceremony, how do you think we can guide, like, the young people come to ceremony? How do you think we can do that?
Well, I think the most important thing is the commitment, and making that spiritual commitment or spiritual vow, however you want to call it, that this is what you want to do with your life, and it's hard, it's really hard, especially for a lot of us, depending on where we're coming from. If we're coming from some of the smaller cities or the bigger cities, your life is so fast. Things are going on so fast. It's hard to, commit to doing something and being somewhere when you have to be there. And I think we see that a lot, growing up, that you have all these people who come to dance, and then eventually something gets in the middle of that commitment, whether it's work or, and we have to survive day to day too, and so whether it's work or it's a relationship or it's your family or whatever it may be in your life, eventually, like as adults, you see the adults kind of starting to fade away more, and then the youth are coming in. But like you said, to get the youth to come is have them be committed. And I think the thing that sometimes the parents don't realize is they have to have commitment too to get them there, and it's like, oh, here's my kid, we want him to learn this, but then they leave, it's like, oh, so we got to take you home, and we got to go pick you up, and
got to feed you.
So there's that other part of the commitment of the families too that's important. And I think the younger you're around it, the more exposed you are to ceremony, it'll help you in your life. It'll help guide you, and you'll have the people around you that have been doing it and can tell you these are the things, these are why we're dancing. These are the things we're praying for. These are the things we want to happen for our people. And so a lot of times it's really important with the youth to have the right mentors and adults to guide them, but also ones who are committed too, and I think that's the hard part, is a lot of times people want to sing because singers get recognized. Oh, and I want to be that, but then again, it's like we talk about all the time, all the hours of time you had to learn, and then knowing that it's a special thing when somebody asks you to sing. And so I think for young people, just continue to come, continue to show up, and I think we're in a place now where, there is ways that if parents aren't committed, you can get here, and so I think those are the most important things, is to be committed and dedicate the time to learn. And I think it's important to be honest and say, this took a long time to learn, and maybe you'll learn it a little faster, but it's going to take time, and not be like, oh yeah, you're going to be singing next year, and you just got here 1 year ago, and so I think healthy expectations, being honest about, like, it's going to take time. You're going to start here. There's a place to start in the ceremony, and you're going to start here before you get over here singing, but if you can pick up the songs, that's going to help you later when you become a singer. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to be a singer right now, and so I think those are things that are important, is just the values, good mentors, and continue to come, because you understand that there is a benefit to the sacrifice, that good things come, protection comes, and so those are things I always feel like are important to share with young people, is that, yeah, it's here, but you're only going to get out of it the things you put into it, and just be honest with the young people.
Because there's also like a difference between dancing and there's dancing and performing. There's a difference between the two. Do you feel the same way of that? Yeah,
definitely. And I think those are things you see them, and when you've grown up in culture and in ceremonies around it, you notice the difference right away. And I think sometimes when you're not around it or grow up in it, you don't really see the difference. You think it's all the same, but it's really not.
Yeah, because I could see that. I mean, like we had, our dancing was like for Shakehead. Like some people don't really know that it's actually a healing ceremony. Like for me, when I dance, it's a healing ceremony to connect to grandpa, grandma, and my dad. And all the ones that passed. So like it helps me in grieving. It helps me, through hardship, and it's just being out there dancing or singing. And is that how you feel when you get out there? Like when you start singing, do you have those in your thoughts? Because that's what I have. When I'm out there.
Yeah, there is, like I say, definitely an array of feelings and emotions. And the blessings and healing that comes from it as well. And I always think about too. A lot of times, when I sing, like you can feel our ancestors around. And I think those are the things, the blessings that come now at our age, where before when we were younger we might not have felt that, but we knew, hey, we're going here to offer a blessing for this community or for this people, to have something coming for them. And so I always understood we were going to not just perform, we were going to share a blessing, and so that was the difference, where some people are going to perform and then when you're going to actually offer a blessing, or somebody's called us to come and do a blessing, you know. And I think there's things that when you grow up with it like that, you get those other feelings of and emotions of, yeah, this is really good for me. This is helping me out in this time. And I even think, you know, there's times when, like, I hear singers or I'll see people dancing, and it'll remind me of somebody that's, like you said, that's passed on. And even sometimes, like, tears will come out, you know, and it feels good, you know, because I think sometimes the grief around some of our relatives, maybe it wasn't all the way done, you know, and those are the parts that remind you of them. And then you get the good tears too, the happy tears of seeing somebody dance in a good way or sing, and it goes, man, that sounds so familiar, you know. And yeah, and so I think definitely it's important to understand as a dancer and singer why you're doing what you're doing, and not just to go, oh, hey, we're going to dance at the arts festival or whatever, you know. And so I think those are the things where sometimes I hear people talking about it, and it's like, oh, well, we're going to educate the non-native people. And I think there's a time and place for that too, you know, and sometimes it's not giving them the dances. Sometimes it's coming and talking about the stories of the land, or these are the things that happen to us, but we're going to bring something later on for you guys to see that we survived through this, you know. And I think there's more to our culture than just the dance part, you know, that kind of gets forgotten. But I feel like there are good things that come out of it, the healing, the medicine, and being able to connect to our ancestors, which is important, because when you can feel them, it's a beautiful feeling, you know, to know they're around.
And it's something that we always have, like, you know, like our parents did it, you know, and then we started dancing, and then I can't remember if it was an option or not. I just remember, this is what my family does, this is what I'm doing, you know. And I think my kids are the same way, you know. My son Waya and my daughter Nomi, they just put it on and start dancing. I mean, no classes, you know, no nothing like that. And your kids are the same way, all your kids, you know. And so, like, you know, what do you think needs to be done just to keep this whole thing going? I mean, is it our kids, or is there more other things than just our kids to keep it going? Yeah,
no, you know, and I think it's important to think about, you know, like I said earlier, the big picture, and it does start with families who've held on, you know, and continued, and not just held on, but have even grown in it, you know. And I always feel like there's more to come, you know, but it's about what we put into it, what we commit to it. And I really feel like, you know, the only time I really feel like there was an option if I was going to dance or not is if older people came, you know. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm not going to be able to get in there this round, because older people came. And so you kind of just knew that. But if it was just us, we knew, like, we're going to get in there, you know, and nobody had to say, hey, you need to go dance, or we just did it, you know. And I think that's the things that are innate in us, and it comes from our ancestors. So it's just natural. You move to it, you know, instead of standing there going, oh, is this my time now? Or you just know it, and you get in there. And so I think, like, with our kids now, it's going down to the next generation, and eventually it'll go down to their kids when they have them, you know. And so those are important qualities, and those are important things to remember, that we do have that, you know. And so I feel like as long as we keep continuing to dance, we continue to talk about ceremony, and we go out and gather, and we teach how we do this and why we do this, the times of the year we do it, it'll continue, you know, because what usually happens is the younger ones will grow it even more than where we've taken it. They'll grow it even more. And so just reminding them to be ready that other things will come too. And so it's not something that's exclusive, but I think because it's been done so long in our families have to be a part of it, you know. And not that we're going to force our way into things or push people out, but to be a part of it, you have to have those families that grew up in it, and it just never stopped, you know. So as it moves forward, it is critical for those bloodlines to be involved, you know, and that's nothing on anybody else's family or bloodlines, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that maybe your family weren't the dancers or the spiritual people. Maybe they were shell bead makers.
The fishermen.
Yeah, the fishermen, the hunters, and all of those things had spiritual value in them. And so I think that's what we forget, you know, because maybe nobody taught you how to hunt or how to serve fish, and you just, dancing is being Indian, you know, and
they go right to that.
Yeah.
That's the first thing they do is learn the dancing and how to, instead of going back to, you know, like you were talking about, you know, how to build a house, how to fish, how to hunt. You know, there's a lot of other things other than dancing.
Yeah, and those make you just as native or indigenous or Indian as the other ones too. You know, and so I think it's, again, learning to value everything in our culture will help you when it comes to doing dancing, when it comes to being part of ceremonies, because, you know, like we had songs to fish, we had songs to hunt, and so that will tell you that this is a spiritual ceremonial thing too, you know, and just that maybe there's not people practicing that way no more, but I think those are things that are important. Again, if your family were the ones who were the hunters, that you take that up too, because it'll help you. It'll help you in other areas. But like you said, it's just like people hone in on the dancing and they think that's it.
And that's what we were talking about earlier, you know, with dancing. It just seems like with the classes that goes on today, hopefully the classes will get less and less, because whoever was in that class is just now going to pass it down to his kid, you know, or teach his kid in his house that, instead of saying, okay, you got to go to class too. I mean, I think these classes are good for, you know, the ones that are new to get into it. Now they can pass it down instead of going to class. And hopefully that kind of transitions into that, where it goes back to passing it down, passing, like the way Uncle Nelson or Emick had passed theirs down, you know, and it wasn't classed. It was just do it like this, do it like that, you know. And it's something that if you're a regalia maker, that there's a whole different language to that, you know, that you understand. So hopefully, as the future goes on, like hopefully, my son, if I pass down to him, he'll pass down his kid. Yeah, he's not going to have to learn in class.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's the hard time too, and you know, and there's a sense of you know, like we're pitiful people as indigenous people, and you know, and when I see stuff about classes, or you know, it does make me feel for the people who go. I don't know who goes to the class. I just see who's teaching maybe. Yeah. And so it makes me feel pitiful for our people that's where you have to go, you know. And so then I think about, on the other side of it, how do we open up the roundhouse to come and do that, you know? Or because, like you said, if you're making regalia, you're disconnected from the land. You're in a class, you know, maybe you're in the city, you're disconnected from the environment, the land, the water. And so all of that's kind of like not even a thought. It's just like, hey, I'm in here, I'm at my desk or my station, and I'm doing this. And so what are you thinking about? You know, and if you're out on the land, or you have a place in your home to work, you can make it more ceremonially, you know, and as versus a whole room full of people all at different stages and at different abilities, and maybe just learning from somebody who's done things before or made things before, to go, yeah, we're all in the same space, but what are we learning? You know, we might get an end product, but what did we learn about that? You know, and it's kind of the same thing. You know, sometimes I see, like in our area, you know, some of our sister relatives making ribbon skirts, and that's from another place, you know, and so it makes me kind of wonder, well, why are we doing ribbon skirt classes when that comes from somewhere else, you know, and those are the things I think about, you know, who is saying that this is part of our culture? It looks beautiful, you know, the dresses and skirts are beautiful, but what are the teachings behind the ribbons? Why was that done? And those are the things I don't get answered. And so it just makes me kind of want to understand and think about, well, how come that's happening? Why is it happening? And so it's maybe for, you know, people who have family in other places, that's something that's okay. But is it to get together and share and teach and create a space for people to come together, you know, to conversate. And I think it's all a response to, again, the lack of community, the loss of land. You know, we're trying to survive and carry things on from even the cities. Yeah. You know, and so it's hard, you know, so I have pity for our people. And as much as I have commentary about it, I still feel for them, and that we have to find another solution, to help support our relatives who are in the cities, and that's where they're at. But again, there has to be a commitment on their part too to want to learn. So it's definitely a balance in everything.
I think it's not whoever goes to the class, it's the ones that doesn't have the resource to go to an elder. And that's okay to go to class if you need that, because it's like we always talk about, we're so lucky to have, one of the prominent, regalia makers in our family, Nelson, and our cousin Emick, and and then our singers were, Thomas Leon and Grandpa Jim Brown and my dad, so we've really had it lucky or blessed to have that in our side of the family. But again, a lot of other people don't have that, and so for them to go to class and learn, if that's the only way, then yeah, okay, but also, like you were just talking about, just understanding why you're doing it, why, and having a commitment to actually finish what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And, and going back to like what you're saying about our bloodline, it's when we think about it, like our grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, they all wanted this to continue. And that's why they married in where they married in from Big Valley, and so it wasn't a coincidence or a mistake that it happened like that, because this is what they prayed for, and I feel blessed, like you said, and we're lucky to have all the resources we had growing up, and so that's where on the other side of it too, I think about how do we help and support others who don't have it or who are looking for it, and because I think the reality is there has to become more in terms of how to give it back, because you can only complain so much about something, and if you don't do nothing to get involved with it, then you're just going to complain. Nothing changes. And so I think there has to be a time and effort to say, hey, we want to invite everybody down to the roundhouse, and we're going to talk about the dances, or we're going to have ceremony, and if you want to ask questions, you ask questions, but there's never a time during the actual ceremony to do that. But I think creating a space to do that in some fashion, to give people the opportunity to say, hey, if I didn't learn songs or we didn't have singers, how do we go about dancing, or who can we dance with? Who will open this up to us to dance so we have a better connection, and I think it's important, again, to look at and try to find solutions to help so that people are just not having to go to, limited resources. And so, yeah, there's a way to do it all. And I think it's just continuing to talk and try to find solutions to support each other.
I think you're in a really better situation here, to understand what these people need, or what our people need, because before, like I said before, sometimes I come off, I've been called this before, I've been come off a little arrogant about my culture. So, I try to make sure that, I don't come off, arrogant, because like, we did have the resources. And so I got to remember that not a lot of people had that, and so I started to learn how to talk to people and not, invite them to ceremony or tell them how to make things, because I didn't want them to think I was gatekeeping, and sometimes I do think you got to gatekeep a little to keep things sacred. Like if you want to learn, like when I had to learn from Uncle Nelson, it was like, well, collect all the feathers and then come to me, and so that's the one thing I always try to say when people ask me about things, like, well, if you collect all the feathers, come see me, and that's one thing I try to do more than, discourage them, about anything else. That's why I talk about classes, because I don't want them to think that classes is not the right way. If that's the only way you can learn, then yeah, go to the class if you don't have the resources. But it's just tough to, and today, we got to make sure, like my dad used to talk about culture sensitivity. So, you got to also make sure, because the way, like we were talking about the other night, like the way we were learned, the way we were taught, we were yelled at, and so that kind of helped, because I got yelled at for not taking care of my feathers, and I've been taking care of my feathers ever since I got yelled at, and I think today's youth, there's different ways of teaching.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you're saying that, because I remember too, like, dancing and taking the coat off and just setting it down, and here you have him come by and gotta roll it up, or my dad are like, need to roll it up good. And so it came from when they got to those places of making the regalia, it got more special too, you know. And then you realize it, like you said, it took something maybe a little harsh for you to go, oh wow, this is important, you know. And so I think those all have its place, you know. And I think and like I said, sometimes I feel like our people and we're a little too sensitive at times, where we'll let that discourage us and stop us. But at the same time, if you really want this to be a part of your life, you'll take the time to hear all of those teachings and stories, and it might not be the way you learn, but there's value in it, you know. And I think that's what makes it important, is that somebody took the time to say, hey, like, you have to take care of this. Like, what are you going to do when I'm not here? Like, how are you going to do this, you know? And so I always think about that too, you know. And now it's that cycle of when I was taking off the dance outfit and maybe not putting it away the right way, but now you better believe it, I'm rolling it up nice and making sure the feathers are not all ruffled up, and
don't leave it in knots.
And so those are things you learn, you know. And so, but I think the younger you learn it, the more respect and value you'll have for it. And then in turn, you'll get the blessings and the teachings and maybe even the gift of something from the ancestors to carry on, you know. And so those are definitely all important things that we have to be mindful of on this journey, you know. And I always tell people, you're not going to just be this one thing and it's going to stay like this. It's going to be a journey for you, you know, and just to remember to be humble, you know, because you might think it's this one thing and then you might find out it's, hey, singing is tough. You know, I got to be here now. Everybody's asking me to sing. And I know I was sharing this story with somebody not too long ago, and I was sharing how one of our aunts, she married into Grindstone, and I seen her at a dance, and they didn't have a singer, and she was like, "Hey, I wanted to see if you know some of the Grindstone dance songs," and I was like, I could probably sing one or two. I said, but the coming out song, I don't know any of the. And so she sang them to me, and so I caught him. And then I remember Kyle showed up, and he knew some of them too. And so we ended up singing for her, Auntie Mame. And after we got done, she said, she gave me some money. She said, here's some money. And I said, oh no, Auntie, it's okay. You know, I don't need any money. And she said, no, you need to take it. Like, I was like, no, it's okay. I don't, you know, it's all right. You know, and she goes, no, you have to take it, you know. And so I took it. And she was, oh yeah, so since you took that, now if I need a singer anytime I see you, I'm going to ask you to sing, you know. And so I was like, oh, okay, you know. It was a respect thing too, but then again, it was saying that you're a singer, and if we need your help, you know, you got to sing for us. And so I was like, oh man, like I felt like, oh, she got one over on me, but that was just tradition, you know. And so I think those are the things when you start to sing, and then you go, oh, I got to learn songs that I didn't grow up dancing to. Then even as a singer from the songs where you come from, it's another difference, you know, singing songs from another place. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to start listening, paying more attention when Grindstone comes out and dance, you know. So I might have to sing that sometime, you know, for her. But yeah, it's not always, it just looks good, you know. There's some growth, and some times where it's hard, or you're not in that spiritual space to sing, you know. Maybe you're going through something yourself, you know, and like, oh man, I'm not singing right now, but I gotta sing, you know. So
when we danced at Oak Flat, you know, this past last month or a couple weeks ago, I usually do the singing up there, you know, after my dad had passed, and you showed up, and your son said he'll sing with you, and I was like, yeah, shoot, man. I always bring, you know, what I have just in case, and that's one of the things I do. I always like to dance. But so when I got out there, you know, to dance at Oak Flat, my son was, you know, he was second, and I felt kind of like I was a little older because he was, you know, now he's more of the prominent dancer, you know, and I'm just kind of like in his territory.
Yeah,
that's how I felt, you know, and but he, you know, just dancing with him, you know, made me feel really good, you know, like, you know, I'm going to be 50 pretty soon, and I could still get out there and dance with him, you know, and have, you know, dancing those rocks, and then you know, have my I was hurting now the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Like and I've seen you dance recently too. Like, what do you think it means, like, for us to still be dancing today? You know, even though we can sing, you know, at times, but we can still dance. What do you think? You know, how you feel about that? Like, because I know my son, it made him feel really good.
Yeah. No, I think it's important too, because, you know, it's kind of like when you're younger, you get the idea, oh, these guys are old guys now, and they're almost like they're washed up kind of thing, you know, and but I think it's important because it shows like that order of how things come, you know, and how you get to the next place. And I think it's critical to do that, you know, and I was sharing about when my daughter Lucy danced for the first time. She was 3, and so kind of same thing, you know. Kyle was there, and my dad, and I think it was Haim and Jimmy and Hale, and I was like, shoot, I'm gonna get in there, you know, like this is my daughter's first dance. I'm gonna dance too, and so we have that together, you know, and so I was thinking about it even with my younger daughters. I said those are important memories that'll help them to remember why they're doing this, you know, and so it's always beautiful when I see fathers and sons, or mothers and daughters, or uncles and nephews, whatever it may be. It's special, you know, and it really shows that, you know, there is a process, and the importance of, like, older dancers, like you said, to show up and kind of not put the younger dancers in their place, but to know that you can't just be all high and mighty, because one day we might show up and we're going to put it on, you know, and to know that if we want to, we can get in front of you guys to dance, you know, and so I think the value comes, though, with all of the knowledge, because, like you said, it's like, who did we see dance that they didn't get to see? And now they get to see us dance, but then they get to hear the stories of who we saw dance, or who we dance with. And I think it continues that good tradition of being proud of where you come from, you know, and I know, like, I was really happy, you know, getting to, you know, sing with my dad and you know, my son, and because those are things I hold dear, you know, because there's going to be one day, you know, that I hope to be there for my son's kid and be a part of passing that on, you know, and so I was sharing at Cache Creek at the big time how I said, you know, it felt good, and I didn't realize, because my dad said, hey, I'm going to dance today, and I was like, well, who's going to hold rock? You know, I start worrying about who's going to hold rock, and then even the whole way down, I was sharing how, you know, I was singing all these songs on the way down. I'm gonna sing this one today, and I got up there and I drew a blank. I couldn't remember, you know, got to coming in, setting down song, coming in song, and I was like, oh man, what am I gonna sing next? And then I realized at some point during that dance, this is the first time I'm singing and my mom and dad are dancing, you know, and so it really felt special to me. They blessed me with something that day that I get to share and get to say. And then my son was out there, and I was like, man, I started to get emotional, and I was talking, and you could kind of hear it a little bit, you know, but I was just taking in just the whole beauty, and thinking about, dang, you know, we used to dance with Graham and Auntie Ermedine, Auntie Teresa, Auntie Betty, and, you know, we got to do that, and so it made me think about how that's continuing, you know, and so I really value the times when I get to see that, you know, and so I always hear, like, even some of our relatives say, oh man, I wish I got to sing with my dad. I wish I got to dance with my dad. And so it makes it that much more special, you know, and so I'm really proud of family members when I see them doing that, because it's something that does become cherished, and then you can say, like, yeah, we all did this together, you know, and so I think those are times that we don't see as much anymore, but every now and then we get that, and it's beautiful.
And we all have, like, we all grew up together, you know, our cousins, and now they all have kids and they have grandkids. So it's like, you know, there's different groups where actually it's the same group, because we're all kind of just expanded. I mean, what else is going to happen now? I mean, there's 6 boy dancers, so we all have family. So we have family. So now it's probably going to split. So when people say, like, oh, you guys used to be one group. Well, we were one group. We would be a huge group. You know, there's no way we can get all those people in there like that, all our relatives or cousins. But when we go back to, you know, dancing, what would you say to people who just started dancing?
Well, I think the importance is of like, how much did you observe, you know, and how much do you see the difference of light dancers and how they move and their timing, and are they in harmony with the dance? Are they in harmony with the song? And just continue to observe, and because a lot of times, I think we want to dance, but then we haven't really been exposed to it, and just to know how important and beautiful the dance is, to see that there is all of those things in it. It's not just getting out there physically and moving around, there's the spiritual part of it. And I think to tell young people to look at different dancers, to not only like show up when you're going to dance, but stay around, so you can see how different people dance and the different dance movements and style, so you can have a better understanding and a connection to the way you move, and I think it's really critical that those things get pointed out. And I know a lot of times it doesn't, or nobody says, hey, you should watch this person dance, or you should see how they move to this song, and how they shake their feathers or they shake their head, and then to be able to say, this is why. This is why we do that. And so I think there's not enough teachers, like teachers who have really been involved for a long time. And not that there's not enough, maybe, like you said, somebody's just teaching in their own family and they're not sharing outside of that. But I think it's important to, if you got something to offer, to share it, to help that person to reach their potential, and because we all have gifts, and not all our gifts are the same. And so to help people find their gift and their love in what they're doing, I think is important to encourage and to share, and to, when you see them like giving it their all and everything, that you acknowledge it, and you continue to, give them good feedback about what they're doing, so that they feel proud of who they are and what they're doing. And I think, like I said, there was different for us, I know, just thinking about how when I wanted to sing, and like, man, I don't want to sing in front of my older cousins, they're going to make fun of me, or they're going to, they're going to tease me. And so it was a little more, oh, well, I'll wait, like you said, until a singer don't show up, then that'll be my time to shine, and even if it don't sound good, that's going to be my time to shine. And so, I think just encouraging and giving people good feedback and things they can learn, will help new dancers and young dancers, and to even just say, hey, look, this is how they move for these songs, and like, what do you think about it, or what do you see, or what makes you feel good when they dance, and just help them to, explore their own connection, and give them good feedback.
Today, we were talking today, and I asked you, because I wanted to do an episode today, and I asked you, what can we talk about, and you came up with what we're talking about right now in this episode. What do you think this, like, I know myself, but I want you to tell listeners why you think this all matters, like today, why you think this matters in this episode, for them to listen and understand what you're trying to tell, the message you're trying to bring across.
I think there's so much happening in the world, and I feel like at times our people feel powerless, and sometimes I get some of our community who's like, why are you guys still doing that? Like, why are you guys still dancing? And almost like they might have lost the value of it, or maybe they express themselves differently in religion or whatever they choose. But I think the important part of it is to understand that we're powerful people, and we have these gifts and these things that come through us. Not that we're the power, but power comes through our people. And with that power, we can do beautiful things. We can do good things to help each other. And sometimes I feel like, when I do a lot of the work I do in the recovery world and the wellness world of trying to, get our people to live healthier lifestyles and get away from some of the things that are plaguing our communities, it goes back to, what are your strengths? Where do you come from? Who do you come from? And to know that before all this happened to us, that everything we had in our world was there for us. We had the medicine people, we had the healers, we had the medicine people, we had all this knowledge, and it came because our people were spiritual, and so the thing I want people to understand is that we still can attain that good strength and that power, but not to be better than anybody, but to help our people, you know. And I think it's important for our people to know that you can reach that, but it does take sacrifice and commitment, and it takes your life to learn and to dedicate your life to these ways that people will get the blessing out of it. They'll get the healing out of it. And I think we kind of feel like sometimes I when I see different people dancing and I hear people talk, it's almost like, and this is where it ends. It's not going to go any further than this. But I think there's a long way to go. There's more to go. There's more to come. But it's really about what are we going to give in appreciation to receive that. And so the part of sharing all of this is to have people be committed, you know, to whatever they're doing in the culture and ceremony. Be committed in a good way, and to teach our young people, to teach our families that maybe haven't been there for a while, that this is something that we all have, and that together, collectively, we can make this beautiful. We can make it strong and powerful, and to the point where we can address all of the things happening to us. We have the solutions, because not only are we thinking with our brains, or we're going to school, or we're getting trained, but we're also talking to our ancestors. You know, we're talking to the spirits to help us with the things that we need help with. That it's more than just a physical thing. We got to be spiritual too, you know. And so the more and more we can give, the more the spirits will give back to us, you know. And I just want people to know that there's more than just what we're doing now. There's more to come, but we really have to be willing to give to get those blessings and to get those things that are going to come. And I think sometimes I feel like our people think the culture is not going to grow anymore, the ceremonies won't grow anymore, but there's a lot of things that are coming. But are we going to be open? And I tell people this, you know, I always share this in some of the trainings and when I speak, that, you know, sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and we'll ask for blessings to come, but then when they come, we'll push them away because, I wanted to be the one that got to sing this or share this, and it might come to somebody else, but the blessing is coming, and because it's somebody else, I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with that over there. But I think that's the part, is we can't get in our own way, and we have to be happy when it comes to whoever it comes to, you know. And so I really want people to get the depth of knowledge, and not saying I don't have all that knowledge, you know, but to know that there's a deeper knowledge and there's more to learn, and don't stop growing, you know. And I feel like sometimes people, maybe they met their potential and that's it, but don't stop yourself from learning more or being open to other things that'll come. And it's hard because, you know, we've had so much happen to our people in our history that we'll stop ourselves, you know, because, hey, somebody didn't help me do this, or I'm dependent on so-and-so and they're not ready right now. And so you have to really make your own time too, you know, to go, well, I'm going to go out and do this. If so-and-so can't make it, I'm still going to go and do it, instead of letting other people stop us or ourselves stop us, you know. And so I really pray that, you know, more comes to our people, and that the next generations coming are, you know, my unborn grandchildren, that when they come here, they have good teachers and good mentors that'll help them to reach their potential and whatever their gift is, and helping them find their gift, instead of, you know, finding it when you're in your 30s, or, you know, knowing a little sooner that, hey, this is my purpose and this is what I'm going to do. But I think as long as we continue to give, to sacrifice, to be good people, our ancestors will take care of us, and they'll send the things we need, you know. And so sometimes we want to go, I need to go to the library, I need to go to the archives and research this. But why don't you pray about it? Pray to your ancestors about it, and they'll share it. But I think sometimes because we've been conditioned to not really believe in that all fully, we kind of stop ourselves. But I think through all of this is just to remember that we're powerful people, that the ancestors you come from, they're beautiful people, and they had a lot of teachings. And so look inside yourself, look inside your family, and find out what your people did good. And, you know, even some of our relatives that I mentioned earlier, you know, some of them might not be living the best lives, but I think about the good things they did, you know, and because you can talk all day about what somebody did to somebody or they're bad people, but try to remember the good things they did, you know, and so when I think about all the good things I was able to see, I feel blessed about it. You know, I don't want to carry on the negative and be a part of that, but at the same time, well, what good did they have, and then what happened? You know, so yeah, I hope people get, you know, something out of it, and whatever that is for them, that they just think, you know, to think more and to know that there's so much out there, and you really have to, like we always say, take the time. Take the time to learn, take the time to go sit with people, and it'll happen, you know, but just don't feel like you're entitled to instantly know everything, because nobody's entitled to do that. And sometimes I think we feel like we can, but.
So thanks, Eeks, for, you know, taking the time to talk to us and, you know, talk about, you know, the topic we had today. And I think all that you guys said is very important for the youth to understand, and for people who's trying to learn the culture and the dancing, and, you know, just responsibility and respect of regalia and songs and dancing. And just want to close it out with, you know, what the blessing that you might have for the episode today.
Yeah, you know, and a part of it too, I was just, you know, sharing in the language that it's important to know that we have a good life, you know, and the words that I shared come from Uncle Nelson, and he shared with us at a language class how, you know, today we pray for different things, and he was saying how, you know, when he grew up, it was what we needed right then and there. You know, we prayed for that, and so he was saying, you know, there's a prayer that we said just to bless everything that's living, you know, and he was almost trying to like make it easier for us to understand. He was like, I'm gonna tone the language down a little bit, because if I say it this other way, you won't have no clue what I'm trying to say. And so he was just, you know, talking about making sure that we know that we're blessed, and all the things in the land, the plants, the animals, the medicines, the spirits of the land, that they're there for us, you know, and to make sure that we remember that, you know, and to go out and gather, you know, go out and sit with the land, go down by the water, and to remember that that's a part of who we are, you know, and so I like those simple words of just saying, you know, why but gayu but gahalek gamu gai kudu himkim, and just saying that everything is good, you know, and so yeah, it kind of stuck with me, you know, and it makes me feel good to know that, you know, he spent a lot of time trying to share, and I didn't take in everything, you know, there's some things I got to take in, but I'm just really thankful for today, and for you coming and spending time, and it's always good when we get to catch up and talk about the things that are important to us, you know, because there's value in it, and yeah, and I hope, you know, other people will take the time, if they listen to this, to maybe go and talk to their families and reconnect with each other and remember those important times that their families had, you know. So
okay, well, thank you very much, man. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and make sure you share this with all your listeners and all your family, and thank you again, Iko. All right, thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Fight for Existence podcast. If you guys want to keep up with the podcast in general, what you could do is follow the social media account. The Instagram account is going to be Fight for Our Existence. Again, that's Fight number 4 Our Existence. Go ahead and give that a follow. And if you guys have any questions for us, or you guys would like to be on the podcast, in the Instagram there's a link. Go ahead and click that. No matter what kind of platform you guys listen to this podcast on, there's always that plus or that follow button. So go ahead and click that so you guys can get notifications when we upload our next episode. And if you guys are listening on Spotify, what you can do is go ahead and rate the show. And if you guys are only listening on Apple Podcasts, what you can also do is write a review for the show. Thank you all for tuning in to the Fight for Existence podcast, and we will talk to you next time.